area, not just those that are contracted with us, but those that are both contracted and not contracted with us. We would ask both. Nowadays, we ask you to update your profile in the provider portal. Because of that, what we find often is that for the most part, only those that are contracted with us tend to complete the profile and give us their private pay rates. And it tends to be the market rate survey tends to be limited to only contracted providers. Then what the Office of Early Learning does is they stack up the survey responses for private pay rates, and they stack them up from the lowest rate all the way up to the highest rate. And then they go up to the 75th percentile, and that's what they use as the target rate. And then I think I sent out information to all the providers, to all of you, that said that for the rates that we're looking at right now, the statewide rates are targeted at 100% for infants, 100% of the 75th percentile. So some of you have a private pay rate that may be higher than the 75th percentile, and some of you may have a lower rate than the 75th percentile. And then it will be different if you live in Volusia or if you live in Flagler. So I don't know if that helps you or not a little bit. Heather, do you want to take the next question? Unmute yourself.
Sure. So the next question was that some of the new vouchers have an effective start date of mid-January. Will providers have to credit parents' accounts dating back to that date, even though we just found out about this? So the coalitions were not approved to post the rates in the system until the 11th of February, yet they were effective January 1. So any certificates that were issued before that date would reflect the old rates. So yes, the parent should be refunded or credited if the rate increase impacted the parent portion of the private pay amount. So this is basically one of those questions that it depends, because it depends on what your rates were, what your rates are, and if you do or do not charge the differential to the parent. So you can contact your your compliance specialist, and they can help you through a couple of examples so that you can feel confident that you are refunding or not refunding if you need or do not need to.
Okay, the next question is, and I think the question really is that centers and family homes are no longer receiving equal rates. Historically, in ELC for Flagler and Volusia, we have paid the same rate for family homes as we have for centers. And that is different now, again, because of the statewide rates. And again, that's because of the market rate survey. And so again, what has been reported by each of you in the market rate survey is what has the state has used in the market rate survey is based on what you as providers report from your private pay rate. And so the market rate survey is based on those responses. And as you might update your private pay rates, those two rates are different based on the responses. We do plan on doing some calculations and trying to figure out not only what would it look like and how much would it cost the coalition to bring the rates between Flagler and Volusia up to the same, but also bringing the rates for family homes and for centers back up to the same as well. And then talk to the board about whether or not they would like to have us ask the Office of Early Learning to reinstate that equality. And then, depending on the board's decision, ask the Office of Early Learning to fund that. We can tell you that this is a $50 million legislative allocation this year for these rate increases, of which Volusia and Flagler got $1.6 million. And so I don't know, we haven't done the whole calculation yet to figure out what the additional cost would be to make the additional changes for us locally, but I can tell you it will be expensive. So we're not sure that the board would want to make those changes, and we also are not sure that the Office of Early Learning would be willing to give us the additional funds to make those changes either. And then Heather also wanted to, she put a note in the chat box that we are recording this meeting, so that if someone that you know wasn't able to get on the call today, that you could, we're going to put it on the web so that they could listen to it at a later time. So one of the questions that we had too was, will you as providers be receiving a new certification with a differential for each student in the portal? So Heather, if you'll go back to that question and answer that for them.
So where is that? Okay, so the answer is no, new certificates will not be issued by the coalition. However, you can identify the individual information by going into the portal and viewing the certificate yourself. How you do that is that you go to the enrollments menu, manage SR enrollments, view and edit SR enrollments, and then you can filter by the enrolled status to only look at your enrolled children. And for each child, you will see a view payment certificate button. So that should get you a new certificate should you choose that. However, the reimbursement report is now available for January 2021. Typically, those reports are available somewhere between like the 7th and 10th of the month, depending on when we're able to wrap up the attendance process. And so that will reflect the new rates that you will receive by each child. So you can find this report under the attendance menu, reimbursement details, and choose the payment period of SR January 2021.
All right. The next question we have is, I plan to increase my private pay rates this coming July. Does that affect my reimbursement rate increase? Yes, the increases done at any time may affect your reimbursement rate, especially if your private pay rates are lower than the coalition's maximum rate increases. So again, if your private pay rates are below the coalition's maximum pay rates, you are only being paid your private pay rate. We cannot pay you above your private pay rates, even if the coalition's maximum pay rate is above that. So if you're planning on increasing your private pay rates, when you do that, you would get paid more money up to the coalition's maximum pay rates. The next question is, some of the new vouchers have an effective start date in the middle of January. Will providers have, you already answered that? I
did do that one, I'm sorry. I did.
Sorry about that. Okay. If I increase my pay rates, does it affect my current parents or only new potential parents who may enroll? Did you answer that one?
Nope.
Okay. So private pay rates are the provider's advertised rates and have to be advertised and apply to all parents. They cannot be applied to only a portion of your parents. A provider may scholarship an ELC FV funded recipient for any or all of the differential. So remember, a ELC funded recipient has to pay the parent copayment. You have to collect that copayment, but you do not have to collect the differential. Any rate change a provider makes to private pay rates, I think by your contract, has to be submitted at least 14 days in advance of the effective date. You need to check your contract for that information. Also, this will also allow the provider enough time to notify parents of the change. And remember, you may have in your parent handbook additional time. Sometimes in your parent handbook, you may have a 30-day notice. So you may have to give parents a 30-day notice where you have to give the coalition a 14-day notice. And then, but it is important to know that you have to give, you have to charge all parents the same rate. You can't charge just ELC parents more or ELC parents less. You can scholarship ELC parents. Okay.
One provider inquired if we did not increase our rates, do we still need to amend our contract? And the answer is yes. You, even if there's no changes to your rates, you still need to sign the amendment because it reflects that you are aware of the rates changed that the coalition will reimburse. So you will still have to sign that amendment. If you do change your rates, you will receive an additional amendment for that rate change. So yes, you will have to do at least one amendment and possibly multiple, depending on your particular situation.
So again, there's a question about why are we not being paid like Flagler County? When can we expect another pay increase? And when will parent fees change in the system? So it's really three questions. So let me take the first one. Why are we not being paid like Flagler County? So again, it goes back to the market rate. The market rate is set at a county level. There are, and then when the market rate is set, it is by type of provider and then by age group. So if there are not enough providers who responded within a particular stratum, then for that particular county, there may not be a rate given. So as an example, in Flagler County for, and Heather put in this in the chat box, the current market rate study that is presented for the Office of Early Learning, which is the 2017 rate, which is not the most current one, but they have not yet released online the most current one, which is 2019. But there are holes in it. So like there might be a hole at the family child care for infants, let's say, or for 3-year-olds. And so if there is no defined market rate, sorry, I'm going to mute everybody again. If there is no defined market rate for that particular age group or that particular type of provider within the particular county, then the state applied the statewide rate for that particular type. I can tell you when that happened, the statewide rate compared to Volusia County's rate is higher, which is why you might see some situations where Flagler's rate is higher than Volusia's rate, because there might be situations where that might have had a hole or no data was provided because Flagler County is a more rural county or less providers in the county than Volusia. And so there was no data provided. And so the statewide rate had to fill in, and the statewide rate is higher than the Volusia County rate, which is why you might see some of the rates be higher in Flagler County than in Volusia County. Now to the second part of that question is, when can we expect another pay increase? Again, what we are going to be talking with the board about is whether or not they have an appetite to revert back to equal pay rates for Flagler and Volusia County. So we have one pay rate between the two counties and equal pay rates for centers and homes. And so we hope to be talking to them in March about that. And even if our local board votes that yes, they do want that, we still have to ask the Office of Early Learning to fund that because we do not have enough funds locally to pay for that. So we still have to ask the Office of Early Learning if they're willing to fund that, and they may or may not say yes to that. So it's still the question of when can we expect another pay increase? The earliest I would expect to even be able to know the answer to that would be April. The likelihood is going to be a little bit later than that. The third part to that question was, when will the parent fees change in the system for our parents? This provider reimbursement rate change does not affect the parent fee changes, the parent co-payment. What it affects is the differential that you may be charging. And that is affected back to January 1. It is it's retroed back to the same date that the reimbursement rates changed. So the parent co-payment did not change. And those rates don't change at all. The parents' individual co-payments may change whenever their reimbursement or whenever their redetermination of services changes. But when you look at the overall amount that your parents are paying you, if you charge them a differential, that differential changed back to the date that the reimbursement, the maximum reimbursement rates changed, which for the coalition, when we changed those rates, that was effective January 1. Heather's going to give you, I think it's a question a little bit later, where we talk about a little bit more about that, and Heather's going to give you some more information about how to calculate that. Okay, so I hope that's a little bit more helpful. So the parent fees, the parent co-pay fees don't change. It's the differential that changed. Okay. And then Heather already answered the question about if we don't increase the rates, do we still have to amend the contract? Yes, you do, because our maximum reimbursement rates are listed in your contract, so you still have to change it. Okay. Well, some of the new certificates not reflecting the new rate. Heather, you had an answer.
Yes. So this would be likely due to timing. So it may be that the rate was not in that the certificate was issued before the rates were in the system, but you're just now receiving the certificate just because of the crossing paths of when the parent chose to get the certificate and you are getting that information. So it is, those again are not going to be updated. If you want a new certificate, you can go view that certificate by child per the instructions that I did already provide. And again, it's the issue is that the enrollment was approved by the coalition prior to the rates being entered into the system, not prior to the rates being their effective date. Will there be an increase for the VPRAP rate? Not the rate for the 3 hours, the rate for the SR children staying for RAP around. I'm still not understanding the calculation, and I think it would be a standard rate just like all other age groups. So it is a standard rate for that age group. However, it has some depending factors. So the way that the VPK RAP rate used to work is that it used to be a flat fee. And it used to be, I think it was $14.56, if memory serves me correct. And it used to, because of most of our programs do not, or did a 3-hour program. It's pretty standard across the counties. Well, that's not the case anymore. A lot of programs do different hours. So the way that the VPK RAP rate works is that it takes the total SR rate for the day and divides it by the allowable number of SR hours, what is considered a full-time hours, and that is 11 hours. So the daily rate divided by 11 hours. So we get that number. Then we subtract the number of VPK hours from that. So it could be for your program, it could be 3, it could be 3.5. Sometimes it could be 3, and sometimes it could be 3.5 if you have different classrooms doing different hours. That's deducted from the 11 hours and then multiply the difference by that hourly rate. So in most cases, it's 8 hours times that hourly rate will then become your wraparound rate for that child. And basically, in short, the state is not going to pay you for both SR and VPK at the same time. So you're getting paid for VPK services during VPK times and SR services for the time around that based on the SR rate, but only at the number of hours, up to the number of hours that you could provide that care for that child. And I know that's a lot. I know that's a lot. If you have questions, your representative, compliance representative does have a tool that they can help and show you exactly how that's calculated for your particular situation.
Okay, the next one is, are we able to grandfather in, in the current private pay parents and just charge the incoming families the new rate increase after 14 days notice, or must we increase their rates with the new one? So if you decide to increase rates, you do have to increase rates for everybody. But let me remind you, you do not have to increase your rates. Just because the coalition has increased their maximum reimbursement rates does not mean that you, as a private provider, have to increase your private provider rates. Let me say that again. Just because the coalition has increased our maximum reimbursement rates does not mean you, as a coalition, as a private provider, have to increase your private provider rates. If your private provider rates are below the coalition's maximum reimbursement rates, you will not be able to get paid the full maximum reimbursement rates, but you do not have to increase your rates. However, if you do increase your rates, you cannot increase your private pay rates for just school readiness children only. You have to increase your rates for all children. All right.
The next one is the January reimbursement report for the February settlement date rate is different than the provider rate schedule we just got. So does that mean we didn't get the new rate for our February payment recently? Does the new rate change back to the old rate in June? I am very confused with this whole thing. Welcome to the club. So the new reimbursement rate should absolutely have been reflected in your new payment as of your February payment for January services. Okay. Therefore, your report should also reflect those new rates. I think this provider probably did not charge, was already probably charging the maximum rates that we were allowing, and therefore did not see any difference in their payment because they were already maxed out. So again, while you do not have to change your rates, you are certainly welcome to change your rates. And you do not have to change your rates to align when we change our rates. You can change your rates anytime that you wish, preferably not very often. I'm sure that you don't want to do that either. But just you have to give us notice, and obviously have to advertise to your parents those rate changes, because that's going to change the differential if you charge one that you are charging them. These rates are intended to be permanent. This is not a temporary thing. I think where that probably came in is that the state identified $50 million to push this out for this year, and then didn't talk in their literature about beyond this year. So yes, what the state did cost the state $50 million for the remainder of this year for the entire state, those rate increases. And the governor has submitted his budget with funding to accommodate this raise for next year. However, that budget has not been approved, and DJ will go into the legislative side of things. So in short, these are intended to be permanent raises, but our funding is dependent upon the state. So DJ, you want to talk about the legislation and where we are with that this year?
Yes. So as I think I sent out something that talked about that the $50 million that this initial funding increase is based on was in proviso language last year in the legislative budget in the 2020 legislative session. And it was based on $50 million, of which we in Volusia-Flagler got $1.6 million. So at this point, the legislative session does not start until next week. And so there are no Senate or House budgets even presented yet. Nothing's been filed, nothing's been presented as far as a general appropriations bill. The governor at this point is the only budget that's out. In the governor's budget, there's $100 million appropriated for continuation of these funding increases. And what they call it is they've called it rolling to the base. And so they've taken that $100 million and they've rolled it into the base school readiness funding. And so it is money that's sitting in trust for the Child Care Development Fund. And then, as we all know, well, there was an extra $189 million in additional CCDF funding that's coming down from the feds annually that would cover these additional funds. And so the likelihood of this being taken away is very slim, because there's additional annual funding that has now been given to Florida that would cover these additional dollars that are needed in the state. And then with the change in federal executive management, the likelihood of additional child care funding is pretty high. And so we would expect to continue that at least continue, and it would be rolled into the base, would become reoccurring dollars. So there would be no reason to believe that at least the funding increases that we've seen today. The next question, I think Heather had an answer for this one last night. So Heather,
can we just hold on 1 second? Did DJ cut out for others or just me on that last? Okay, can you just go over the last part of that again, DJ? The last part of the last question, the last answer?
About the federal part?
Yes.
Okay, so at the federal level with the new executive leadership, the expectation is funding would continue. Mm-hmm. Did you hear that the $189 million is a reoccurring funding that would cover the $100 million that we plan, that is already, that would cover the $100 million in reoccurring dollars that is expected to be in the budget this year for ongoing support of this increase.
Thank you. So the next question was, when changing the new rate for parents, it looks like they don't pay me anything, or it is negative $21.15. like I owe them to come to the daycare. I'm sure that parent appreciates that. And they were giving me $53.85 a week, for example. How does that work if we can't raise our tuition rates? So for support specifically on your rates, you need to contact your compliance specialist. They have tools that can help you calculate each child's rates. And I want to clarify that you absolutely can raise your tuition rates. You just couldn't do it at the same time we were doing the amendments, the initial amendments. And you have to give us 14 days notice. To do this, it's basically 3 steps. You're going to update your profile, and you're going to upload your private pay tuition rates with the new date that those are effective. And then what that's going to do is it's going to tell your compliance specialist that they have to review that information, and then it will trigger another amendment for you to sign to verify that what we have recorded is correct. How can the prices increase if I have a contract with ELC? First of all, I hope that everybody is happy that prices did increase. I think that the concern would be more that how can the contract prices change, and especially if they went down. But in the contract does allow for changes during the contract period, and not with everything. However, the rates are one of these specified allowances. And I did send an email out recently with some additional information, and it included an excerpt from the contract about rate increases, both when the coalition does a rate increase and the provider would like to do a rate increase. So either you can go look at your actual contract and you can look at the electronic one in the system, or you can go back to that email and look at that information if you'd like.
And then the last question we have on the list is, how will this affect the private pay, and how soon can private pay rates be increased? And so it goes back to what Heather said. It depends on whether or not you want to raise your private pay rates. Again, you do not have to raise your private pay rates. If your private pay rates are less than the coalition's maximum reimbursement rates, then you might want to consider increasing them, because you're not getting full advantage of at least the maximum pay rate that the coalition would reimburse you. If they are higher, you may not want to raise them at this point. You may want to stay with whatever your business plan is. You can raise your tuition rates with a 14-day notice in your notice to the coalition and a notice to your parents. Again, update your profile, upload the updated tuition, private pay tuition rates with a future date that's at least 14 days in advance, and then it triggers another amendment for you to complete. So those are all the questions. Oh, you had something, Heather?
I was just going to say that it's important for you to base your rates on your business needs and your cost of business. So mirroring our rates in this case kept some businesses that probably does cost them for the cost of care is probably higher than our rates. We're pretty darn sure it is. That cost them getting that differential, at least for a period of time, because there is that gap between when those were implemented and when a amendment can be entered and processed.
Yeah, we definitely, when you think about the way that the market rate study is completed, if you base your rates on what we reimburse you for, that cost of that market rate will only continue to spiral downward, and rates will get lower and lower and lower. And as a good example, Miami-Dade has their providers over time have based their rates on what the reimbursement rate is from the coalition. And in this particular situation, Miami-Dade is 1/5 of the state, so 20% of the state. And out of this $50 million, they got $945,000. So less than, what is that, 1% of the dollars. So you know there's something wrong in the allocation, in the methodology, because their providers' rates are so depressed in Miami-Dade that they were not able to get even a reasonable allocation of the dollars. They should have gotten $10 million in this allocation, and they got less than $1 million because their provider rates are so depressed. So I don't want that to happen to us. And if you as providers set your rates solely based on what we reimburse you, that is what will happen. So your rates need to be set based on what it costs you to provide the services, not what we reimburse you at. So last question. Okay. Oh, I apologize. It said that it was allowed time for school readiness is 10 hours a day. It is. Okay, I think that's the OEL rule. I apologize for that we gave you that wrong answer. I think it's based in rule. So we'll look it up and we'll quote the rule to you. And we'll get that back to you. And then, okay. So now I want to open it up a little bit for questions. So if you can either raise your hand or put a note in the chat that you'd like to ask a question, and we'll so if you have questions, let us know. You might be able to unmute yourself. I think we found that out last night. So kind of what questions you have that I'm sure we didn't answer them all. Really? No questions?
Yes, sorry, this is Julie. I couldn't hear you when you just specified about the 10, 11 hours. I think you cut out a little bit for me on my end. I wasn't sure what the response was to that question.
Heather, you want to say, in case I cut out again?
That we were going to look into, we believe that is in rule, and we will look into that information, but I know that that's the calculation that they use in EFS mod, which is the portal that you put your payments in or your attendance in. So I'm fairly sure that 11 is correct.
Okay, thank you. I didn't hear DJ there at the end.
Yeah, she's cutting out. I think it's her fancy headphones she's got going on there.
Thanks.
Other questions? Well, anytime you have questions, you can feel free to contact your compliance specialist. I see a couple of them are on the call today. If you're unable to connect with them, or if they'll ask questions of us too, if you can't catch up with them, feel free to call Heather. And if all else fails, you can call me, but I probably will call Heather or your compliance specialist to get the right answer. Just telling you. But I'm happy to talk to you as well.
Let's let the staff introduce themselves. So, if people have a camera on, they can put a face with a name, since we haven't been able to come out and see anybody.
So I see Nona. So that's the one I can see her she's in my vision. So she's Nona, why don't you wave? Say hi.
You can unmute yourself, Nona, and say hi.
Hi, I'm Nona Seals. I'm the high risk compliance specialist.
And I see Kim also.
That would be me. I'm sure a lot of you have already seen me because I've been out, except for the last year, but I am Kim Burrows. I'm the compliance specialist, or a compliance specialist.
And then I see Christy.
Hi, I'm Christy, compliance coordinator.
Mm-hmm. And then for the Family Services Department, I see Kim Kanya.
Hi everyone, I'm Kim Kanya, the Family Services Director. A lot of you I've met indirectly via email, so it's nice to actually see faces.
And maybe one of us who work here will learn how to say her last name.
Can ya? Like, can you do it?
Thank you. That's
You know, it has to have a trick.
I think that might be.
Randy's there. Why don't you say hi to Randy?
I don't see Randy on.
There he is. He's right there.
Yes. He's
Gonna
green.
pop up.
I'm here. I'm Randy White. I'm the program supervisor.
I just like to listen to him talk. I like that accent.
And I'm like the only guy here.
We have a couple.
Yeah. Can't say I see him very often.
We only allow one per call, though. I cannot believe there's 3 times as many people on this call as last night, and there's a quarter of the questions.
Right. No questions, no more questions. No. All right, well, feel free to reach out again to your specialist. Oh, there's Pat. Pat has a question. Okay.
Hey. Oh, you're muted, Pat.
It's not that I actually have a question. It's more like a statement. I appreciate all the information, and I can assure you that once I embrace all this and really get into it, you probably will be hearing from me with a question or two. I'm just trying to wrap my mind around everything and understand it. I want to feel confident in what I'm doing. So I appreciate this webinar, or whatever you refer to the team meeting as, Team Microsoft. This is my first experience with it, and I did enjoy it, and thank you very much. Won't hesitate to contact my compliance specialist with a question. Thank you.
Great.
Yeah.
We think we're going to be doing these more.
Good. They work well.
Okay, good. And then DJ, did you want to share about the parent email?
Oh, yeah. Thank you for reminding me. So our plan is the Office for Learning plans on sending out an email to you guys, and then probably to parents. And our plan is to send out an email to parents as well. Kim's got it drafted already, but we want to give you a few days to kind of put your thoughts together and kind of work it through. And then we're going to send it to you first. So we're probably going to send it to you tomorrow, and then we're probably going to send it to parents on Monday. So and the idea is to let them know too that we want them to be, because some of them may be getting a credit or a refund, and we want them to kind of know what's going on as well. So excuse me, we're going to be showing you what the email looks like before they see it, so that you can have a chance to have a communication with them as well. So just want to give you a heads up, but we're going to send you the email tomorrow so you can see it before it goes to them. Okay. And you can watch the call. So I think it's Angel's asking. It's not really Angel, I don't think. But anyway, you're asking if you can watch it again. We are recording it, and we're going to put it up on the web so you can see it again. The question and answers are done in shortcut, in kind of shortcut answers. So I don't know that you would understand the way we worded the stuff. I know that sounds bad, but we kind of did shortcut answers so that Heather and I would understand what we were saying. But I think both last night's recording and today's recording are going to be put on the web, and maybe we'll send out an email that shows you kind of where they are. Kim has a question. Kim Bakasha. You have to unmute yourself. You have to unmute yourself, Kim. You unmute Kim?
Okay, I'm unmuted now. I can't see myself. These team meetings get so big that you can't see yourself on it. My question has to do with if you're emailing the parents and letting them know that the prices have changed and so forth. If we're already a Gold Seal provider, that won't necessarily change their prices because they're already not paying the rate difference or the rate differential because the quality money. I just decide I don't have to do the reimbursement because the quality money actually takes that up. good luck explaining that to parents. They already don't understand what I do. And I just feel like I feel more like those of us, if you want to send it out to parents and a director agrees, but otherwise I think you need to say, please check with your director and find out if they're a Gold Seal Center, if they have other quality monies somehow in there, so parents realize they may not be getting a reimbursement. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think what you're trying to say is if a parent is not paying, if the parent's only paying their co-payment, you don't necessarily think the parent needs to get the separate letter. Is that what you're saying?
Even if they're paying your rate difference, but if instead of charging $100 a week, instead of reimbursing a parent based on $100 a week, I've been giving them 120. Now that you've decided to give me 108, it's no different. I've been giving 120. I don't have to. I can just lower my reimbursement, what I'm subtracting from the parents' rate, keep their rates the same. I mean, we're already at a $12 difference, but that's the problem with the certificates not reflecting. It reflects that a parent gets that money back, and they don't.
Right, but we still think that the conversation is important for you to have with them, because it's important for them to know what it is you're giving them, whether or not it's 108 or 110.
Okay.
So I think Julie had a question. Oh no, yeah, Julie, do you still have a question?
Yes, I'm sorry. I feel like I asked a million questions.
Nope,
In the beginning, you did state that credits to families will really depend on the providers to contact our compliance specialist. But is there any way you can kind of give us a synopsis as to what that would look like? I mean, why is it dependent on providers? I thought it would kind of be the same across the board. That's what I'm a little bit confused about.
So that would be dependent on your private pay rates. So if a provider charges lower than what our maximum reimbursement rate is, then we're only paying them what their private pay rate is. Whereas if a provider charges more than what our maximum reimbursement rate is, then we're paying them what our maximum reimbursement rate is, and then they have that differential between what we pay and what they charge.
Mm-hmm.
So that all factors in to how it impacts a parent and their payment to you.
Okay, so if I have a differential, then I would be basically crediting back the difference then.
It is likely that for at least January and possibly part of February that you would, until you raise your rates. It is likely that.
Well, okay. I mean, if I choose not to raise my rates though, because my rates are already higher than what ELC pays out, I am just crediting back difference on differential.
Correct. That is correct.
Okay. Okay, for January 1st through, I guess.
Through whenever you collected until you start changing what you collect from them.
Okay. That makes sense now. Thank you.
Okay. These are great questions. Keep them coming.
Any others?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I wasn't sure. So I want to make sure I'm understanding this right. So if my rate is, let's say, $100 for the room, and ELC is only paying, before the rate increase, they were only paying us, let's say, 75. And then the parent fee, and then we charge the differential, we charge them another fee, so it can equal up to $100. But now with the rate increase, so maybe it was 75, but now it's 85 that we're getting from ELC, and then the parent fee, and then our differential staying the same. So now we're supposed to give a refund to the parents?
Yes, either a refund or a credit. Many providers, I think, are going to probably, especially if you have an electronic system, You may choose to do a credit and just apply it to their next week's payment that's due,
Can't close it tight, okay?
rather than exchanging money back and forth.
So
But
then
you have to show them that you're doing that.
gotcha. So how do I don't know. How will you guys tell us how much refund you're supposed to get? Or we have to determine that?
Yeah, yes, you would be doing that. We have some tools that can help you, but you would be doing that. So in the scenario that you gave us, the difference initially was $25, and then the difference became $10.
Yeah.
So that is $2 a day per parent for the 5 days. So then that is what you would be giving them back a day. So it's going to be that difference in your differential for
Okay.
you, for your scenario that you just said.
All right. Thank you.
And again, contact your compliance specialist, contact me, contact DJ, who will contact me, and we'll help you out with, if we walk through a couple of your specific cases, I bet you will catch on just fine.
Yeah, so Kim's suggesting that maybe we create a couple calculating the parent fee sheets reflecting the new rates. I think we could do that. That's a good idea. So
that is available. We'll send that out.
Okay, so we'll do that. And then feel free, when it comes to talking about the market rate, when it comes to talking about why the rates are different in the two different counties, those are things that I can answer for you. Please call me. That stuff is the stuff that I'm the one to answer those kind of questions. Compliance specialist will refer you to me, and Heather will refer you to me. When it comes to how to calculate the rates, that's where I'm going to refer you back to Heather and your compliance specialist. They're the ones that understand those details, but I'm the one that'll understand the market rates and how to get that stuff. Those questions.
All right. I have Julie Nazario with her hand raised. Does she still need to speak? And if so, are you unmuted?
No, you already answered my question.
Great. And actually, I'm sending you an email right now with your rates.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? All right. Well, I think we'll go ahead and end it there. Perfect timing at 2:29. You guys are awesome. We do plan on having more of these about other topics. I think we've already gotten some suggestions on what those